afternoon. Welcome back to the live stage. I'm Jared Allen with NADA. We're going to talk a little bit right now about the connected car, what it means and what it will mean for consumers, for dealers, and of course for road safety in the years ahead. So it's my pleasure right now to introduce our guests, Michael Burdiek, President and CEO of CalAmp, Brian Greaves, the Director of Product and Channel Management with AT&T, and David Braunstein, who is the President of Together for Safer Roads. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Welcome. Michael, you and I were talking earlier, and you said something that really stuck with me, which is that connectivity by itself yields nothing. It's the data and analytics and applications that create value. Why is connectivity not enough?
Well, because data by itself is essentially useless. I mean, data is everywhere in our lives today, but I think our focus as a company, and certainly with LoadJack and safety and security themes that LoadJack has supported for a number of years, is really focused on taking that information and data, specifically from aftermarket telematics technology, and using that data to assess driver safety as well as report instant crash events more directly to law enforcement than is possible today. And so those are just a couple of, I'd say, key value-added features that are available in telematics technology that really makes use of data and connectivity in a way that really hasn't been realized.
Interesting.
I was just going to say, I couldn't agree more. I mean, from an AT&T standpoint, it's really the culmination or aggregation of a lot of these different data touch points, everything from vehicle to vehicle, DSRC, cellular. Cellular is basically just a channel or an enabler to make all of this data-rich content available. And then obviously with that richness of data, you can obviously create safer, more reliable and secure services for the end consumer.
David?
Yeah. So, Together for Safer Roads, as a global road safety coalition, we're looking across all sorts of solutions, connected solutions especially though, because we're trying to keep people safer on the roads, safer in their vehicles. They need to know more about their driving behaviors than ever before. They need to know more about other road users, and especially, as Michael was saying, post-crash response is a really important thing. If you can reduce, the time that first responders take to get to a vehicle, to get to a person who's injured, you dramatically improve the chance of their survival in a crash. So it's very important to connect across all of those areas of road safety.
Well, I think not only more rapid response, but more informed response.
True.
Right? About the relative severity of the accident, the dynamics
Absolutely.
around the accident, because ultimately that helps first responders provision the right assets in response to those events.
Absolutely.
It's such an important point. We probably don't talk nearly enough right now about the application and the analytics. We do talk about the platforms that are providing the connectivity, but it's interesting to think about, going forward from today, we're going to have to be talking about the data, the analytics, and the applications for those as much, if not more. Brian, let me ask this question to you first. The role of third-party vendors here in the market, both on the connectivity itself and then the analytics, has got to be hugely important. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, AT&T is obviously continuing to work with an ecosystem of partners. A lot of that driven from the automotive manufacturers, but then working real closely with tier one suppliers and industry partners such as CalAmp to really bring together a coalition of different partners that can bring a subset of different services depending on what services that customer needs. Obviously, we've touched on a lot of the safety security services this morning, but that doesn't just limit to that. When you start thinking more broadly, and as these connected car systems evolve into more fully focused around in entertainment and infotainment, you can just now start to think about a lot of the industry partners and third-party application partners coming together and how much richer their information and their communication can bring to the end ecosystem.
Michael, same question?
Yeah, so I would like to sort of frame this from the dealer perspective, and that is, these technologies give the dealers an opportunity to engage over a longer, essentially a life cycle with that customer. And telematics technology, aftermarket specifically, allows that ongoing engagement, whether it's for service and maintenance programs that could be reliant on proactive alerts coming from a telematics platform, whether it's for virtual lot management prior to the the sell-through of the telematics platform to consumers to allow them to understand where their vehicles are, what the fuel levels are, what the battery levels are, in this more virtualized dealer environment that we exist in today.
So it sounds a lot like you're saying that there's really a role for dealers here to play in the deployment of these systems in the field through their customers.
Absolutely, both pre and post sale, because telematics has a role to play in the enterprise, as we like to say. When consumers come in and shop for vehicles, they don't really come in to shop for; they do their shopping online. And so, if they can have better real-time visibility on what's available, whether or not it's available for a test drive, the battery's charged, it's fueled. And it's available for sale. That's very powerful for the dealers. So the dealers can rely on the same telematics technology platform that can be sold through to the consumer that have all of these various value-added features, including the safety and security attributes that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. David, how do you see this playing out?
I would like nothing more in the role that we sit in to see the dealer community embrace road safety, because Michael and I were talking about this earlier. If you think about it, many of you are trusted advisors to your customers. You want to have a long-term relationship with them. There's no better way to do that than to give them the peace of mind that you're keeping them safe. And there's a lot of other reasons that people want to have a relationship with the dealer, but this is a great one. And if we can have more of the dealer community embracing this message and the solutions that actually create that connection between consumer and dealer, manufacturer and whatnot, it makes for a safer road system overall.
Talk about some of the products and services that you're talking to the dealers here about today on the expo floor.
Sure. Well, like I said, we frame it as sort of sell in and then sell through. So selling in meaning that we give the dealers an opportunity to leverage what we call lot management platform, right? It's telematics enabled, including a dealer inventory management portal. So they can pre-install telematics technology on every vehicle that comes onto the lot. And that technology can be repurposed once the consumer comes in and purchases the vehicle as a consumer-focused telematics platform capability. So, lot management, again, understanding what the fuel levels are, what the battery charge levels are, whether the car is out for a test drive or not, via GeoZone kind of technology and other location-based services. So it's very powerful for the dealers. They can monetize that investment with the sell-through product, and it's a win-win for everybody. And ultimately, I think, a win for all road users because of the safety and security attributes that come along as embedded capabilities with the telematics platform.
Brian, same question?
Yeah, I agree. I think what you're really doing is establishing trust and loyalty with those end consumers, the consumers that are coming to your dealerships every day. By having these types of technologies, whether it's embedded or whether it's aftermarket, you're now having this information at your fingertips to where you can better message to your end consumer, bring them back into your dealership. You know about what's going on with their car before they do, and you can message appropriately with the appropriate services and the appropriate action that they need to take. And there's a huge opportunity for upsell. Not only at the point of sale for new vehicles to add on these additional services. Granted, AT&T is really focused and working with a lot of manufacturers on putting a lot of these embedded services. But the reality is, a lot of these aftermarket services, and some of the things that we're working real closely with our friends at CalAmp they come to market a lot faster, and they often prove themselves out in the aftermarket space. And there's a huge opportunity for dealers to rally behind these new services, and more than anything else, educate the end consumer about what value these services can bring to whether it's a small fleet or an individual consumer that's coming into the dealerships, and bring that value add to their daily lives.
Yeah, dealers love nothing more than serving their customers, making their customers happy. The whole business model revolves around that. I'm just curious if the monetization of this, what it potentially means for not just keeping customers happy, but for helping dealer revenue. Or you're talking to the dealers. Are they learning about this for the first time, or do they know it and they're just getting more information now?
I'd say dealers have been aware of aftermarket telematics products, but I don't think there's been a comprehensive solution that's been brought to market like what we've announced here at NADA, where you have a sell-in product that can be sold through that has really advanced OEM grade crash detection technology on board, and also sort of the enterprise integration as it relates to both inventory management on the pre-sale lot management platform, but also post-sale in terms of providing proactive alerts back to the dealer when a vehicle that's been sold with this telematics platform on board is actually encountering some potential maintenance issues. So it's ongoing digital engagement with the dealer and the consumer over the life cycle ownership of that product. What's interesting though is that although the new car sale is a great point of attachment, it's at every touch point you have the opportunity, the dealer has the opportunity to upsell these sorts of products, right? If they're in for service, maintenance, repair, there's always an opportunity to upsell or engage with that consumer and educate them really on the benefits of this technology and kind of really reinforce that virtuous cycle.
I want to get back to safety for a second. David, I imagine you have a lot of interaction with the safety community, safety advocates. So much of the focus is on the products that the automakers are putting into the vehicles, and then there's just sort of off and running on the roads. To what degree are the safety community looking favorably on this convergence of automaker product, dealers, and then these third-party applications and how this all plays together?
So I would say that I've been pleasantly surprised. The road safety community tends to be a little bit on the more conservative side, right? These are people who are often in the public sector and they are entrusted with keeping people safe on the roads. You know, it's a different sort of mentality, and I've been pleasantly surprised in the last 6 or 12 months with the receptivity to new solutions, moving faster, but still with a very thoughtful approach to road safety. So I think this convergence you're talking about, the road safety community at large realizes that it's happening and we should take advantage of it as well. That's why we're so thrilled to have companies like AT&T and CalAmp and others as a part of our coalition. And part of what we try to do is go and educate the public sector and say, look, we should partner and we should do these things together in a way that helps everybody to stay safer on the road. So the convergence is here, they realize it, we realize it, and the more we work together on putting these solutions into the market in a thoughtful way, the better off everybody is.
We're going to be back here a year from now. What are we talking, hopefully with the three of you, what are we going to be talking about on either the connectivity side or the analytics side a year from now that we're not talking about right now? Brian, I'll let you go first here.
Well, I mean, I know AT&T's, we're working on a lot of different enabling technologies. Technologies not only for the embedded space, but also the aftermarket space. And a lot of those technologies, whether it's simple, how do we communicate more easily and more cost efficiently with a lot of these end devices, whether they're cars or whether they're OBD plugins, or whether it may be through let's just say an LTE-M solution, or even a full band, LTE Cat5 solution. We're obviously looking to see how we bring these technologies and really autonomous enabling technologies to life, and how do we take all of these different data points as a consortium and start to bring them together? I think, and this goes back to kind of that first question, how do you start aggregating a lot of that data from all of these various touch points? And again, it's an ecosystem of transportation partners. We often talk about intelligent transportation systems, but what I think we're going to see is a convergence of more and more of the smart cities, intelligent transportations, and connected car starting to come together. How do we share information that we're learning from our roads and our smart cities, whether it's traffic management or whether it's smart grid technology, and how do we start bringing some of that information into the connected car to make connected cars run that much more efficient and make the end consumer experience in tomorrow's connected car that much more dependable and reliable and enjoyable ultimately.
Michael, year from now?
I think a year from now we'll be talking about more convergence along the lines of what Brian was talking about. But also inclusive of kind of infotainment capabilities and the things that are enabled by AT&T's broadband network. But I think from our perspective, one of the key focus areas for us from an investment perspective is sort of adding to our technology or telematics technology suite sort of distracted driving aversion techniques, which I think is a huge issue. It's a huge road safety issue, and I think we've done a good job in terms of assessing driver behavior and giving drivers real-time feedback on when they've sort of stepped outside the bounds of safe driving conditions. I think we've done a good job, in terms of developing technology that's unique and integrated with law enforcement first responder ecosystem around crash response. But now we're really keenly focused on distracted driving aversion technology, and I think a year from now we'll have some more tangible things to talk about.
I couldn't agree more. I think distracted driving, fatigue-oriented, situations. There's a lot of places where the technology is going to start to be turned. Now that it's become something that everybody accepts is here and now, we can build applications. We're going to start tackling those real difficult problems, and I think more and more users of cars are going to become better users because of the technology, as opposed to maybe now where we kind of have this, we're going up a curve in terms of like things being a little bit less safe. They're going to get safer because we're going to start using the technology in smart ways to inform driving behavior and make vehicles safer and inform our partners in the public sector. All of those things are going to start to happen over the next year.
I think there's one other thing. 1 year from now, I hope and believe that the first responder community will have case studies to actually talk about in terms of how this technology can benefit drivers and keep roads safer, and most importantly, save lives. And right now we're talking about a lot of really interesting concepts, but I think that ecosystem will be more integrated, and we'll have case studies to discuss around some of the really true and pure benefits of this technology and how it can make roads safer and save lives.
And I think also, just from an AT&T standpoint, we're making, again, continual investments even around our FirstNet deployment or network deployment, again, keeping the focus around security and safety within the vehicle. But I do want to touch on Mike's point that he made earlier is I think there's going to be a huge growth, especially in the next year to 5 years, around infotainment and entertainment more than anything else services. A lot of these, obviously, streaming audio services are only going to continue to grow. Any over-the-top services, how do you start now focusing, whether it's embedded or whether it's aftermarket, services around the passengers that are coming into the vehicles? Wi-Fi hotspots, that type of technology is only going to be able to grow. The amount of devices we carry with us today only continues to grow. So how do you now take that ecosystem of all these different devices that you keep on yourself, how does that transition now into the vehicle? And how do you bring that profile with you into the vehicle and start to exchange that in and out of your homes and into your cars and onto your smartphones? I think that's going to continue to proliferate over the next year more than anything else.
Well, I don't think you'll have any. That's great. I don't think you'll have any trouble in terms of consumer acceptance, market acceptance to these types of solutions. Wes Lutz, who is the 2018 NADA chairman, is also a dealer in Jackson, Michigan, was here earlier today. And what he was saying was that he talks to all consumers who come into his store, and he says to a person, everybody loves the systems that help make them better drivers, right? If they lane departure warning systems, blind spot monitoring, the autonomous features that are making them better and safer drivers, they really can't get enough of. But what sounds like the three you were talking about is we're going to be moving into a whole integration of not only crash avoidance, but crash response, infotainment, all of these things that are going to make the driving experience better, safer, more enjoyable, etc. So this sounds like we're off and running here.
Yeah, the virtuous cycle, right? I mean, win-win for everybody.
That's right.
Win for society, win for dealers, win for consumers, win for everybody.
I want to touch on autonomy quickly because we just mentioned it. We talked about sort of this lower level autonomy, these things that advanced driver assistance systems. But we're headed down the path of greater autonomy, maybe even full autonomy someday. When we get there, no one knows. But since we're looking at the future, what do you think the products and services you're talking about, how do they fit into not just the connected car, but the autonomous car? I'll go right down the line here.
Starting with me?
Yes.
I'd be happy to start. So, today you have roughly plus or minus 250 million licensed registered vehicles in the United States. Not a single one of them not one, is a fully autonomous vehicle. So we're a long way away from having our roads filled with autonomous vehicles. And you really think about the technological dilemma there, and it is a dilemma. How do you get enough autonomy and enough assistance for autonomy into the marketplace to where it actually starts to look like it's truly viable? And the only way you address that is like having other things talk to these autonomous vehicles. And it could be by way of aftermarket technology that's being added to older vehicles, could be through technology that's part of smart city initiatives, could be network-enabled capabilities that AT&T can support through their network infrastructure. It'll be a number of different factors that have to actually play together, almost in an aftermarket, independent fashion, but collectively in order to create the environment whereby autonomous technology can truly work in a very safe way on our roads.
Mike kind of stole a lot of my ideas, especially around utilizing aftermarket to...
we can skip you.
No. Utilizing aftermarket to obviously upgrade a lot of the different legacy vehicles. But I mean, you're right. I mean, autonomy is the buzzword of probably the year. Everybody's talking about it, and everybody kind of visually sees it as kind of stage 5 full autonomous vehicles where you can send your car to go pick up your groceries and pick up your dry cleaning and drive itself. And I think the reality is, not only from a legislative standpoint, but from a technology standpoint, is we're a little ways away from full autonomy. However, it's coming much faster than I think a lot of us would have originally expected. And the reality is both legacy, non-autonomous, not even non-stage 1 to stage 3 of vehicles, and fully autonomous, when we get there, vehicles will coexist on the roads for a long period of time. Kind of going back, this is a transformation of our industry. Kind of like horse and buggies existed with internal combustion engines for a long period of time until you no longer saw obviously horses and buggies on the roads. And I think it's going to take a long time until you're going to see some of these legacy vehicles. But kind of going back to the point is, I do think this obviously the path to autonomy is coming faster than we would expect. And what we're really looking at is what's that end user experience. More than anything else is manufacturers and aftermarket providers are focused around what that end user experience is going to be like in an autonomous vehicle. When you go home today, or just take an example of your everyday typical routine, you go and you leave work. You know that next half an hour you're going to be in the car, you might be listening to the radio, but you're going to be focused on driving. Well, now when you leave work, there's a lot of other things in an autonomous vehicle. What are you going to be able to do? Well, you could go on Wi-Fi, you could catch up on some emails for work, you could take in a movie, you could go on the internet. What is that experience going to be in tomorrow's connected car? And that's where there's a lot of focus is how do we improve that customer experience? But again, with that focus around taking obviously that vehicle and allowing it to function in this autonomous world with all these different connectivity options.
So I would answer the question this way. I liken the autonomous vehicle movement, if you will, to the space race, right? There are literally billions, if not tens of billions of dollars being sunk into all sorts of R&D, test pilots. We're all aware of what's happening on the roads, with vehicles that are already out there. And whether it happens in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, there are going to be, I believe, positive things that come out of that are components of that story. The example I always give is LiDAR technology. That's part of the sight that autonomous vehicles need, many of the sensors, but one of them is LiDAR. LiDAR has the promise potentially of eliminating blind spots. Right? If you can get it down to a cost where in an aftermarket solution you can have more LiDAR-based, blind spot avoidance solutions out there, wouldn't that be a great thing? And then in the end, if it takes 20 years, okay, but that's, for me as a safety expert and somebody heavily invested in safety, that's a good outcome, right? Of course, I wouldn't want anything else to happen that's unexpected because of autonomy, but at the same time, the space race delivered a lot of benefits to society at large, same way that autonomy might.
Michael Burdiek, Brian Greaves, David Braunstein, great discussion. A lot of really good things for dealers to be thinking about today, tomorrow. I'm sure the three of you gentlemen are going to be quite busy for the next couple of days. Thanks for coming to the live stage. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back here in just a few minutes at the NADA live stage. You can watch us on the floor here or at nada.org/live. Thank you.